Okay, so we are back with another entry of Documenting the Journey. I think this is episode 4, I think we're on. And I'm not too sure if I've actually told you why I started doing this or not, like what was the trigger. And I thought, you know what, it'd be quite cool to be able to tell you where the idea came from. So I was watching The Martian. I don't know if you've seen it, about 2-3 weeks ago, probably a little bit longer than that, actually. And I remember he was doing like the video entries of what he was doing, talking through how he was going to try and stay alive throughout this period. So if anyone found him once he'd passed, that they've kind of got the entry of his story and his journey. And I just thought, do you know what? That's like, I found the film fascinating for one, love the film. And then two, why am I not doing this for the business as well? Because even if this isn't watched by many people, it would still be pretty cool to, even if it's like for a year or 2 years, talk about how we're looking at growing this company, the milestones that we're hitting and how we're hitting them, plus also talking about what we're learning along the way, because being a digital marketing business, we're having conversations with people every single day. What we did 6 months ago is totally different to what we're doing now because of the way that these platforms are changing. And I just think it would be quite cool to watch. So every single week, I'm doing a video entry of the stuff that I'm learning, what we're up to on this journey to the first target and milestone, which is £100,000 a month. So that's the journey we're going on. And what I really want to talk about, I'm going to do episodes where I'm going to share numbers of where we are month on month. I know that the last couple of episodes I've spoken about the number of clients that we've achieved and also how bad July was as a month, just as an example. And so every single week, I'm going to do an entry of that sort of stuff. What are we doing to move forward? What are we learning? And you'll have to forgive the sweat on this one. I've literally just worked out and it's boiling hot in this room. But this week has been very much focused on a number of key things. But there's 3 specific ones that I want to focus on in this that I think will help you the most. And it will also help me to get it off my chest and to talk about it. And the first one has come off the back of like the number of sales conversations that I've been having. So what we've got currently as a process to sell both our agency and our educational services, our digital marketing processes that sit behind the scenes that drive leads through. I'm going to talk about that in the final point as well in terms of how it works. But what we're doing is we're focusing in on 2 specific strategies that I mentioned in the last video. So go back and watch that one if you don't know what they are. But in concept, we are looking to use a number of different social media platforms to drive people through a process to a point where they hit one of our conversion pieces of content. And then that fills then our diaries up with sales calls. So whether it's me, whether it's Nick, whether it's Sam, whether it's anyone else in our team focusing on that right then, it fills the diary. And I probably had, even just this week, I think it was around 8 calls, not huge volume, but around 8 calls that we've been speaking about either the academy or potentially like the content service, depending on what was right for them. And one of the things that has really, really hit me right now, especially as we move into this, what I believe is going to be a recession, we're already kind of there anyway. It's just not been formally announced. But what I'm noticing is that when you're having these conversations, one thing you have to be right now is so certain that your product and service is going to work. Now, what I mean by that is, and I get this asked a lot from a lot of our academy students, is you've got to have a skill, you've got to have a product, you've got to have a service, right, that delivers something. Now, we've been able to grow quickly over the last 9 months because our service is delivering the result that we're setting the expectations for. We know it does. We do it time and time again, and we have set criteria for the customers that we work with. So I know, quite frankly, that if I keep speaking to the right people and I align the expectations properly with the right products and service, that we're going to retain our clients over and over again. This is a mentality that I think if you have it, you will continue to grow throughout the tough periods. If you don't, you will reduce. So one of the biggest pieces of advice that I can give is, and it's what I did for about the last 18 months consistently, is build a product and service that actually works, that you know is going to work. Because the moment that you do and you start to see the results, suddenly you start to lift in terms of the overall confidence that you've got. And it only takes like going away and learning a little bit more about it, going into more depth. I was having a conversation with a guy who has a property business, and I don't know if I've spoken about it in one of these episodes before, but he was asking how or what the difference is for somebody that succeeds in property versus somebody that fails. And I always use the example of a guy called Jamie York. Now, Jamie's a good friend of mine, and there's probably not a single person, apart from probably Sarah Point and Ryan that's there as well, that knows more about what they do than what they do. Like, they are absolute geeks with what they do. They've built businesses that are absolute machines. And so when they're talking, when they're communicating with people, you feel it. And you know with like 100% certainty that if you buy something from them, they're going to deliver the result. And so when you're having these sales conversations with people, if you don't have that 100% belief, people are now starting to sense it. And whereas before you had a little bit of leniency, especially like last year and the year before that because of COVID, like there was the leniency in terms of people willing to take a punt and willing to take a risk because people had bounce back loan money to be able to invest. People had savings they were willing to be able to put in. Businesses were investing, looking to grow. Now, when budgets get tighter, when stuff starts to get restricted, when people start to count pennies, you need to make sure that what you're selling is delivering what you mean it to deliver. And that takes a lot of extra work, really honing in on what you're doing. And that's exactly what we've done. So I've noticed a big spike in sales because where people are having conversations with other agencies or other educators right now, where they aren't 100% certain, they're feeling it. And I know it because they're then telling it to me on these calls. So when I'm then having those conversations and they're committing to working with us, they know they're going to get the result, and therefore there's no doubt. So the sales cycle is a lot quicker. So the biggest point for this whole video is that if you're having sales conversations right now, first of all, make sure your product and service really does deliver what you're saying it's going to deliver. And then two, you need to make sure that you really believe it as well, that you see the results coming through. And if that means that you have to lower your pricing like I did right at the beginning of my whole entrepreneurial journey to really test that I knew this was going to work, then so be it. Because that self-belief now allows us to build a business which is going to grow and grow and grow because the product and service actually works. So that's point number one. Point number two is then around this idea of what I have termed message framing. Now, this has come off the back of the workshops that I've been delivering recently, the trainings I've been delivering recently, and conversations with campaign clients as well. Forgive me if it seems like I'm rushing this, by the way. I've got a 10 past 11 film to go watch, and I've got like 10 minutes to get this done so I can edit it so it goes live tonight. But this term around message framing is so, so important because how do I put this in a way that's really going to hit home? The way that people are absorbing information right now. Previously, my attitude to working with individuals, whether I'm having presenting workshops, whether I'm having one-to-one conversations, and there's a difference between the two here, whether I'm creating content, if you start telling people what to do, or more importantly, what they're doing wrong, you automatically put their barriers up. And this then creates a wall that you then have to come across to be able to even have them contemplate working to you. So I'm going to give you a couple of examples of this in a second, which will help bring it to life. But what we've got to do, especially now with our marketing, is find ways of being able to get people to come to the realization themselves that what they're doing is incorrect. And especially for service-based businesses, this is what we've been doing. So the example that I'm going to use is our example first off. And I'm going to take you back like 9 to 12 months ago when we were doing a specific workshop, which was around prospecting, engaging, and posting. That was our message. So if you want to generate leads from LinkedIn, what you need to do is prospect, engage, and post. That is actually partly true. Like, to be able to get those results from LinkedIn, you have to do that. But the problem was, because I was telling people that on those workshops, people were sitting there and the majority of people were already doing it. They were prospecting, they were engaging, they were posting. They just had two things that were missing. One, they weren't doing it particularly well, and there's a way of being able to do it properly. And two, they were lacking the basic business fundamentals to make that activity worthwhile. Now, the problem is, if I then go out there and start saying that and start going, you're wrong, you're not right, you need to do this differently, people automatically go, well, who are you, mate? And they push you away. And suddenly you have to start trying to rekindle that relationship again. Now, here's the thing. If you're doing that on a one-to-one conversation with somebody, you have or should have the ability and the capability of being able to tell someone they're doing it wrong, but then add the context as to why, and then be able to provide the solution that sorts it. Because it's intense and it's an environment where people are willing to listen, you have that opportunity. The problem is, and this is where the issue with content happens, is if you do that in your social media content, and if you do that on your workshops and your presentations, you don't have the ability to be able to add the context, because what happens is people automatically disengage. Because you're telling them something they don't want to hear, they're not interested. So what do we do? And this is the key thing to marketing right now. It's been the key thing since marketing probably begun, but especially for us that I'm learning right now, is the way that we frame things is really, really important. So rather than telling people that their business isn't working because they've got no process and no products behind the scenes that people want to buy, you have to switch it and you have to start presenting in a way which is, have a think about your product right now, evaluate the whole situation. What is it that's really special about it? With your process right now, out of interest, what process do you have in place that is going to enable you to move a person from not knowing who you are to wanting to buy from you? What is that process? Give them some examples. Do you have a landing page? Do you have a lead magnet? Do you have a workshop? Do you have a strategy call that you're moving from? Or is your process currently a LinkedIn post to a LinkedIn message to suddenly a hope that they're going to then book a call in with you? And then you frame it and you ask them the question again, out of interest, how many times have you posted, seen someone's piece of content on LinkedIn, then gone to a LinkedIn direct message and then booked a call? Suddenly, you make them sit back and you go, well, actually, yeah, I haven't done that. And this is where then you start to win, because rather than pushing people away by telling them, you're helping them come to the answers on themselves and they're coming towards you. So it's about how you frame the message. And this was something that I spoke about with a couple of ladies. I did a post about it on LinkedIn, actually. And I did it with two ladies, with my business partner, Nick. We did the strategy call together. And we were looking at, okay, well, what is it that you do? What are the mistakes that people are making right now inside of what you do? So these two ladies, they're looking to help team leaders become extraordinary team leaders and then progress in their careers, basically bring life back to the employee base. And the typical mistakes that these team leaders are making is that they don't listen and they expect the world and they're consistently telling people what to do, or they're overwhelmed and they're too busy. Now, the problem is in content, to be able to build an audience around this stuff, if you just go out there and tell people that, one, they already know it, so they're not really particularly interested because you can't offer them anything new. And number two, when you're doing it in a confrontational manner, which you normally accidentally do, again, people do not want to hear it. They just push away. So what you've got to do is use scenarios and stories to be able to help people come to the realization on their own. So again, I can talk to you and make you relate to something in that regard with team leading and not listening. So again, I'd use an example of potentially of like somebody leaving work. So someone's just left, someone that's been there for 5 years, working hard, great employee, has suddenly left with no cues, no nothing. They've just handed their notice in and left. And this was the whole situation. It was bizarre. So I was sitting there as this person left. And I was like, well, why have they done it? After doing like the formal diagnostic, what we realized was there were certain things going on, but actually there was one unique event. One in their exit interview, there was one unique event that happened, and they were having a one-to-one session. And suddenly this person said something that the team leader just didn't pick up on, and they felt really, really not valued, and it pushed them away, and it led them to looking out for something else. A headhunter came in, landed in their inbox, and bang, they were gone. That's how quickly this can happen. Let me know, out of interest, has this ever happened to you? And then you can relate it back. It's a poor example, right? But it's the same thing. What you're looking to help people do is come to the realization they've done something wrong on their own rather than telling them directly. And then the third key thing really for this week, reflecting back, is I guess it all comes back to a question that I got asked on Friday. And the question was valid. It was, Chris, I'm posting content right now. I'm working hard. I'm putting it out there. However, I'm struggling to find the balance between my everyday business and now the consulting business that I'm looking to do. How do I balance my content? And what this was directly relating to was lead generation off the back end of it. And this, again, can apply to you. It applies to me in the same way. We look at all of our activity in marketing, and it's such an important lesson, this. We look at all of our marketing activities separately. So we look at every piece of content separately. We look at all the messages that we send separately. We look at potential workshops or presentations or pitches that we do separately. We don't look at it with a campaign-led approach, which is something that I speak about a lot. And this was how I kind of took this conversation with our Academy member. Because for me, the balance between talking about their normal business and their consulting business, I have two different things. I have the agency that we're working on, and we have the educational side of what we do. We also have the consulting side that sits like further on down the line that Sam works on. But I don't talk about the individual things. What I talk about is what I'm doing day to day. And you know what? With my content, that isn't the thing directly that generates me leads and business. And this was the thing that I threw back at him. And it's a thing that if you're watching this and lead generation is something you're struggling with right now, something for you to look at as well. Your content isn't going to directly correlate to the amount of leads that you generate, right? The thing that does that is the process behind all of your social media activity. So when he then asked me, it was like, well, you must either get your leads from your content and your direct messages. I actually reversed it. I went, no, that's not the case, actually. Where we get our leads from are currently people downloading our content guide, which you'll find in the description below. We also have our workshops that we run. There are two main lead generators that come through. People attend and they work through. Again, find the link in the description for both of them. But the content that I provide is just showcasing who I am. The videos that I'm doing on here are just being transparent and open around what we're doing and what we're learning. If people find them valuable, great. But what I'm doing is I'm just talking and I'm just giving out the scenarios that I'm going through that other people might find useful. I'm trying to get people to understand the way that I think and the way that I do things, with the fact that in future, and this just happens, that some of you watching this now may like the way that I communicate. They may like the sound of what our business does. And then you then go through and you download that content guide below, or you watch a workshop that is, you don't even need to give us the email address for it. It's on my YouTube channel. You can go and watch it. But with all of this stuff, it's about understanding that lead generation isn't directly correlated to just singular activity like content and direct messaging. It's the whole approach that you look at. And this diagram, again, that is your process flow for your customer journey is so, so important. Now, the key point to all of this third point, is that if you're looking at generating consistent leads, and this is the stuff that we've been doing for the last 6 months now, over and over and over again, you just need to have a process for people to go through. And then with your content, just showcase the credibility that you're with the people you're working with. Document what you're doing. I know it's a term that everyone throws around, but this is me documenting. You're getting insights into my knowledge and what I'm learning as we go through, right? But this is just me talking about what I've learned this week and what I've been working on. There's nothing stopping you from doing the Martian-like thing that I'm doing right now and doing it. I'm talking nonsense for the majority of this, right? It's not really planned. I have some notes on the right-hand side. I just talk about it. So don't overcomplicate this stuff. Think about what the process needs to be for someone to get to the point where they're going to buy your product and service, no matter if you've got 4 products or 1. Having 1 helps at the beginning, but if you have 2 or 3 like us, pick one process, nail it, and repeat. Use the credibility from one business and talk about what you're doing in that, which will then drive the consulting arm. Use the consulting success again into your content. Looking at it in silo, piece by piece, isn't the answer. Looking at it as a collective, month on month, that's where you'll start to see the results. So that's about it, really. I've spoken, I don't know how long this has been going on for, but I've got to do this one quickly. I've got 5 minutes before I need to leave the house. If you have any questions around this sort of stuff, then just let me know. If you found it useful, then just hit that like button for me. Again, just give me that sign that you're finding it interesting. To be honest, if as long as you get one thing from it, I guess it's worthwhile. But even if in 2 years' time, where this becomes the thing that I think it's going to be, it'll be quite cool to see how the views on these videos go up, right? You never know. See how it goes. Either way, I hope it's been useful, and I will see you all next week. Peace.